What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the world of Demon's Souls, a game that laid the groundwork for the entire Soulsborne series and introduced a lot of people to From Software's unique storytelling style. Now, if you've played the game before, you know it's full of cryptic dialogue, mysterious characters, and hidden details that don't always make sense right away. And if you're new to it, it can feel completely overwhelming, like you've been dropped into a world that's already halfway gone. So in this video, we're going to take our time and walk through the entire story of Demon's Souls, from the origins of the world, to the rise and fall of Boletaria, to the demons that now rule over it. Whether you're a longtime fan or just Souls curious, this is meant to help you understand what's really going on beneath the surface. Let's get started with the basics. What is Demon's Souls actually about, and how did this world fall apart in the first place? So what exactly is Demon's Souls? Why do people still talk about it as one of the most important games in the Soulsborne universe? To really understand it, you have to start with the world it takes place in, and it's a dark one. Demon's Souls takes place in a kingdom called Boletaria, a place that used to be peaceful and full of life, but something went terribly wrong. A long time ago, people discovered a mysterious kind of magic called the Soul Arts. This wasn't your typical magic, this was power drawn straight from the souls of the living. At first, it was seen as a breakthrough. People thought this soul power could change everything: medicine, industry, strength, but it came with a catch. The use of soul arts accidentally woke up something ancient, something horrible. This was called the Old One. We're not talking about a big monster or a god with a name and a backstory. The Old One is more like a force of nature. It's a massive, unknowable creature that sleeps beneath the earth and spreads a dark fog when it awakens. That fog is where things start to go really bad. Inside this fog are demons, twisted, powerful beings that feed on human souls. Wherever the fog spread, the demons follow, and wherever demons go, people lose their souls. And with their souls, they lose their minds. They turn into monsters, essentially. According to legend, this almost ended the world. Humanity was on the verge of extinction until a group known as the Monumentals stepped in. These were wise beings, basically the last surviving rulers of a great civilization. They used soul arts to put the Old One back to sleep and lock it away in a place called the Nexus. The Nexus is kind of like a spiritual safe zone. It exists outside of time and space, a place where souls can gather and where the Old One is sealed, for now. But here's where the current story begins. Years later, a man named King Allant, the ruler of Boletaria, started using the soul arts again. He wanted more power, more prosperity for his kingdom, and in his hunger, he found the Old One. Instead of being terrified, he embraced it. He thought the demons were a gift, and once again, the fog began to spread. Boletaria fell. The fog then returned stronger than ever. People lost their souls, the land broke into pieces, and the demons came back to feed. This is where you, as the protagonist, come in. In Demon's Souls, you play as an unnamed hero, a wanderer who enters Boletaria just as the kingdom is being swallowed whole by the fog. You're immediately killed by a demon. Yeah, it's not a great start, and your soul is pulled into the Nexus. This is where the game really begins. There you meet the Maiden in Black, a mysterious figure who offers you a choice: help slay the demons, collect their souls, and maybe, just maybe, you can put the Old One back to sleep and save what's left of Boletaria. But there is a catch. You're now trapped between life and death. You can't leave the Nexus until your mission is complete. You're stuck in the cycle of death, rebirth, and soul collection. Your task is to travel to 5 different regions of the kingdom, each accessed through magical stones called Archstones. Every region is controlled by powerful demons. Some were once humans, some are monsters through and through, but all of them are connected to the Old One. By defeating them, you not only grow stronger, you also get closer to understanding how Boletaria fell, and what it will take to undo it. So let's begin where it all started, the Boletarian Palace. Once a symbol of strength and order, this castle was the seat of King Allant's rule, and it's the first place you'll step into when you begin your journey. Right away, it's clear that things are deeply wrong here. The king's army is still here, but they're hollow, soulless, not just dead, but undead. They've been twisted by the fog, no longer acting on reason, just muscle memory and instinct. These were once knights who served Boletaria with honor. Now they're just obstacles in your path. Some of them, like the Red-Eyed Knights, show signs of greater corruption. They're stronger, more aggressive. Likely these were high-ranking soldiers who were exposed to the fog a bit longer than everyone else, and maybe even willingly. But the real horrors lie deeper in the palace, beneath the surface of crumbling nobility and rotten glory. Eventually you'll come face to face with the Tower Knight, a giant in steel guarding the gates deeper into the castle. But this is no heroic guardian. Like many bosses in Demon's Souls, the Tower Knight feels like a puppet, a relic of power animated by something unnatural. And as if that wasn't enough, Boletaria is now under the watch of dragons. Yes, literal dragons. These creatures were drawn to the fog, feeding off the soul energy pouring out of the kingdom. It's said that King Allant himself welcomed their presence, seeing them as a display of power rather than a sign of collapse. But the real horror comes when you finally reach what should be King Allant's chamber. There you meet the old King Allant, or so you think. This version of Allant is not the real king, it's a demon, the false king, a copy created by the old one to guard its interests. And if you came here hoping for answers, all you get is another question. Where is the real Allant? The Monumental explains that the real King Allant has been consumed by the power he pursued. He sought to become one with the Old One, believing that the extinction of mankind would bring peace, and in a twisted way, he achieved that. His body now rests deep beneath the Nexus, transformed into a monstrous demon known simply as the Blob. This is what remains of the man who once ruled a kingdom, not a god, not a warrior, just a withered, mutated creature completely surrendered to the Old One's will. Boletaria didn't just fall because of war or famine, it was willfully handed over to the darkness. Allant believed that by giving up humanity's soul, he could create a world without suffering, no struggle, no ambition, no pain, just stillness. And Demon Souls doesn't give you an easy answer on whether he was wrong, it just shows you the cost. After the fall of the royal court in Boletaria, we move into something much more grounded, yet just as tragic. Stonefang Tunnel is a vast underground network of forges, caves, and mines, and in many ways it represents the heart of the kingdom's economy before the fall. This is where Boletaria's weapons, armor, and coin were born. The miners here worked endlessly, digging for rare ores to forge powerful gear and tools. It was a kingdom built on steel, and that steel came from this very place. But now, like everything else, Stonefang has fallen into ruin. The workers who once labored here have been twisted by the fog into mindless beasts, some still holding pickaxes as if they never forgot, their end. And they weren't alone. Stonefang is now ruled by bizarre creatures called fat officials, laughing, taunting demons dressed like nobility. These enemies appear throughout the game, often tied to dark experimentation and corruption, but here they almost act like cruel overseers. It's as if the greed of the upper class followed the miners into their end. As you go deeper, you encounter monstrous bosses that mirror the location's themes. The Armored Spider is the first major one. Its lair looks like an old mining shaft overtaken by something unnatural. The spider is mechanical in appearance, firing bursts of flames and spewing webs. It's a great example of how industry, when twisted by the fog, becomes a weapon of destruction rather than creation. Further down, things get even worse. You reach the Flame Lurker's chamber, and this is where the lore starts to get really interesting. The Flame Lurker isn't just a tough boss, it's deeply connected to the Soul Arts. This beast is pure power, born of fire and chaos, possibly created or at least empowered by the Old One's energy leaking into the world. There's a theory that goes around in the community that Flame Lurker is the demonized form of a once great blacksmith. His mastery of flame and brute force suggests someone who once forged weapons for kings. Now he's little more than raging elemental monster. And just beyond him lies the Dragon God. Let's talk about scale. Most bosses in Demon Souls are large, but the Dragon God is something else entirely. It's a world-ending force, so massive that you don't fight it in a traditional way. You hide, dodge, and slowly bring it down with ancient weapons buried in the chamber. Interestingly, the Dragon God may be the oldest of all the demons, possibly even a creature from the same age as the Old One itself. Its presence in Stonefang tells us just how deep the corruption goes. This wasn't just a mine, it was a burial ground for forgotten powers, and greed brought them back to life. Stonefang Tunnel shows a different kind of downfall. Not a fall from grace, but a descent into obsession. The workers here didn't lose their souls chasing power like King Allant. They lost them chasing profit, metal, and fire, and the kingdom used them until they had nothing left. It's a grim reminder that corruption doesn't just come from the top, sometimes it comes from the very foundations we build on. Now we enter what is probably the most terrifying region in Demon Souls, and that's the Tower of Latria. This place feels different the moment you step inside. The air is heavier, the lights flicker, you hear screams in the distance, and you get the sense that something deeply wrong is happening here, but not in the obvious way. Latria was once a place of knowledge and magic, a thriving academic and spiritual center, but then came an unnamed queen and her husband, a man who would later become known as the Old Monk. We don't know much about this queen, but we do know what happened after she was imprisoned. Her husband seized control of Latria not just politically, but spiritually and mentally. He used powerful magic to turn this place into a living nightmare. One of the first enemies you meet here are the Mind Flayers, robed, squid-faced guards who patrol the halls with glowing lanterns and sound a bell when they spot you. They're terrifying, but they also hint at something deeper. This place isn't about brute force, it's about control, psychological domination. The people of Latria didn't just die, they were experimented on, brainwashed, and transformed. This was no longer a place of learning, it became a cult-like prison tower, a hellscape run by a madman who believed he could ascend to godhood. The first major boss here is the Fool's Idol, a magical decoy designed to trap and confuse. It looks like a priestess leading a congregation, but it's really a puppet, and nearby you find a cultist reviving her unless you defeat him first. This whole fight is symbolic of Latria itself, a lie repeated over and over until it becomes truth. Fake worship, fake gods, but real consequences. Then the game gets even more surreal. You're transported to the Outer Tower complex, where you'll fight a giant beating heart, suspended by chains in the middle of the fortress. Let that sink in. A literal heart kept alive by black magic, worshipped by prisoners, and guarded by strange constructs. Some believe this heart belonged to the queen, others think it was a powerful demon's core. Whatever the truth is, it's no longer a metaphor, Latria's corruption has taken a physical form. As you ascend higher into the tower, the enemies become more grotesque, like the man-eaters, twisted experiments that look like mutated gargoyles with lion heads. These were once human. The fog didn't just twist them, it reshaped them entirely. And then you reach the top. The final boss of Latria is the Old Monk himself. But here's the twist, he's already dead. The boss fight is actually with another player, summoned into your game and possessed by the monk's golden robes. This was Demon's Souls' way of integrating PvP into the story, and it works perfectly. The monk doesn't fight you directly because he no longer has a body. He's just a spirit of control using other souls to do his bidding. Even in death, the old monk is still manipulating others, still feeding the old one, still spreading the fog. The Tower of Latria isn't just a creepy prison, it's a warning. It shows what happens when the pursuit of enlightenment turns into obsession, and when magic and faith are twisted into the tools of domination. It's Demon's Souls at its most surreal and its most unsettling. Moving on from the suffocating halls of Latria, we move to the open skies of the Shrine of Storms. But don't let the fresh air fool you, this is not a peaceful place, it's an island chain built entirely on death. The Shrine of Storms is a massive burial site where generations of warriors from all over the world were laid to rest. It's said the greatest fighters came here to duel, to seek glory, and ultimately to die. Over time, the island became sacred ground for the dead, an eternal resting place for soldiers and heroes. But now nothing rests. Because of the fog and the Old One's power, these warriors have been reanimated. They're not mindless zombies though, they fight with deadly skills almost like their former selves. Facing the skeletons here feels like fighting the echoes of ancient champions. They're fast, aggressive, and relentless, as if even death couldn't strip them of their purpose. The first major demon you'll encounter here is the Adjudicator, I hope I say that right, a giant bloated creature wielding a cleaver. It's a strange boss, half bird, half monstrous man whose job seems to be judging souls. His design symbolizes gluttony and punishment. The Adjudicator consumes the souls of the unworthy, letting only the true warriors pass deeper into the shrine. It's like the island itself is testing you before revealing its secrets. As you make your way further, the environment starts to change. You're no longer just in a graveyard, you're entering sacred ground. And here you meet one of the most iconic bosses in the entire game, and that's the Old Hero. The Old Hero is a fallen champion, blinded in death, but still deadly in death. His fight is all about silence. You have to move carefully because he can hear you. Lore-wise, he represents the restless spirits of warriors who can't let go of their past glory. He fought in life for honor and even in death. He's still defending the shrine. Eventually, you reach the very heart of the Shrine of Storms and meet the most mysterious demon of all, the Storm King. This is not just a boss fight, it feels like a legend come to life. The Storm King is a gigantic flying creature that commands an army of smaller storm beasts. The sky literally rains death and these demons glide above you. It's believed that the Storm King is tied to the ancient gods worshipped by the warriors buried here. There's even a unique weapon hidden in the shrine called the Storm Ruler, a sword that can summon the power of the winds themselves. It's almost like the shrine is helping you, giving you a piece of history to defeat its guardian. And there's one more key connection here, faith. The Shrine of Storms is where you can rescue Saint Urbane, a holy man who teaches miracles. It's suggested that this place wasn't just about war, it was about spirituality. For some, it was a holy pilgrimage, for others, a test of faith, and now it's just another graveyard consumed by demons. The Shrine of Storms is all about the lingering past, the idea that even in death, some things don't rest. It's a mix of glory, tragedy, and mystery. We don't know exactly what gods were worshipped here or why these warriors chose this place to die, but what's left is haunting. It reminds you that even the mightiest heroes can become nothing more than lost souls in the fog. And finally, we move on into the Valley of Defilement, the most wretched and horrifying place in all of Boletaria. If the Boltarian Palace showed the corruption of power, if Latria showed the corruption of faith, and if Stonefang showed the corruption of greed, the Valley of Defilement shows something even darker, the corruption of society itself. This is where the kingdom dumped everything it didn't want to see. The deceased, the poor, the criminals, the outcasts, all of them were thrown down into the valley to be forgotten. The valley is nothing but rotting wood, collapsing bridges, and mountains of plague-ridden corpses. The air is thick with poison, everything here feels sick, alive, but barely. Even the enemies are pitiful, more sad than scary. These are people who never had a chance. They're mutated by disease, driven insane by hunger and pain. It's not just a dangerous area, it's a pretty hopeless one. The first major demon you face is the Leechmonger, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a giant pulsating mass of leeches and rot. It doesn't feel like a villain, it feels like the valley itself just took on a shape and started attacking you. It's a physical manifestation of decay. After that, you slog through the infamous swamp, a disgusting, poison-filled hellscape that slows your every movement. It's meant to feel like punishment. You can't escape the filth here. You have to walk through it, and you feel the weight of every step. This is where you meet more of the valley's inhabitants, people who cling to life in the worst conditions imaginable. It's not hard to imagine these were once regular citizens who were simply abandoned here. Eventually, you encounter the Dirty Colossus. Like the Leechmonger, it's not really a traditional demon, it's more like a piece of the valley brought to life. It's made of trash, debris, and flesh, animated by the sheer hatred of the place. It's almost like the valley itself is rejecting you for even being there. But the true heart of the Valley of Defilement is at the very bottom, and here you meet one of the most tragic figures in all of Demon Souls, and that's Maiden Astrea. Maiden Astrea was a holy woman, a saint who came to the valley out of compassion. She wanted to bring hope to the forgotten people here, but when she saw how much suffering there was, she lost faith entirely, and in that moment of despair she accepted the power of a demon's soul, not out of malice, but because she believed it was the only way to ease their pain. In doing so, she became a demon herself, yet, unlike the others, she's peaceful. She doesn't attack, she just sits there surrounded by the people she tried to save, who now worship her as a goddess. Her only protector is Garl Vinland, a knight who followed her into the valley. He still believes in her, even knowing she's a demon now. If you want to reach her, you have to fight and go through him. But here's the thing, when you finally defeat Garl and approach Astrea, she doesn't fight, she simply speaks to you in sorrow. She tells you to leave, she tells you there's nothing left for her. And then she, ends it. I wouldn't even really call this a fight or like a boss fight. It's more of just like straight up mercy. Like that's the best way to describe it. The Valley of Defilement is more than just a level. It's a statement about how society's abandoned the weak and how despair can twist even the most noble intentions. Maiden Astrea isn't really a villain. In some ways, she's the only one who truly cared about the people who lived there. And yet, because the world of Demon Souls is so far gone, even her kindness became corrupted. After conquering all 5 Archstones and defeating their powerful demons, you return to the Nexus, but this time something is very different. With each demon soul you've claimed, you've grown stronger, but you've also fed the old one. Every victory you've had has brought it closer to its awakening. The Maiden in Black, your quiet companion through this journey, tells you the truth. The old one is awake. It has risen again from the depths, drawn by the power of all the souls you've collected. And now you must face it, not as a typical boss fight, not as some epic showdown, but as the inevitable conclusion to the cycle of death and rebirth that has been repeating since the beginning of time. The old one is impossible to describe. It's not a demon in the traditional sense. It's not even really a living thing. It's more like the embodiment of hunger, despair, and the natural pull toward nothingness. It doesn't speak, it doesn't attack, it just exists, consuming souls wherever it spreads. And here's the kicker, King Allant is already waiting for you inside. This is where you finally meet the real King Allant, the man who started all of this, but he's no longer a proud king or even a recognizable human. He's just a lump of flesh, a disgusting mutated creature completely consumed by his desire for power. And one of the most haunting moments in the game, he doesn't fight you, he doesn't speak, he simply exists as a broken thing, begging for death. And when you defeat him, there's no glory, there's just pity. After defeating what's left of Allant, the Maiden in Black leads you deeper inside the old one. She tells you she will lull it back to sleep, sealing it away once more, just like the Monumentals did long ago. But then, you have a choice. This is where Demon Souls truly asks you, what kind of person have you become? So let's go ahead and dive into the 2 endings here. So first we have the good ending. In the first ending, you allow the Maiden in Black to do her duty. She sings a lullaby to the old one, soothing it back into slumber. She thanks you for giving the world another chance, and then she sacrifices herself, disappearing into the darkness with the old one. You return to the Nexus, and for now, the fog recedes, and the cycle continues, but at least there's hope. Humanity lives on, even if it's just a while longer. So the second ending here is obviously the bad ending. Instead of letting the maiden finish her task, you can strike her down. You take her soul for yourself, and then you claim the power of the old one as your own. In this ending, you become the new demon god, the new ruler of a ruined world. The maiden's last words are not of anger, but of sadness. She knows you've given in to the same temptation that doomed King Allant. The fog doesn't lift, it spreads, and now you're the one leading it. No matter what you choose, Demon Souls reminds you that this is a cycle. The old one sleeps, it awakens, it feeds, and then it sleeps again. The Monumentals tried to break the cycle, King Allant tried to embrace it, the Maiden in Black tried to soothe it, and you, the player, are just another part of it. There's no clean victory here, only a brief pause before the fog returns. So after traveling through every corner of Boletaria, meeting its tragic figures, and facing the old one itself, what does it all mean? Because at first glance, Demon Souls seems like a simple story about demons taking over a kingdom, but when you look closer, it's really about human nature, our ambition, our greed, our faith, and our despair. Boletarian Palace showed the corruption of power, a king who thought he could save his kingdom by sacrificing its soul. Stonefang Tunnel showed the corruption of greed, where workers and blacksmiths dug too deep for wealth and glory. The Tower of Latria showed the corruption of faith and knowledge, where a ruler twisted belief into mind control. The Shrine of Storms showed the lingering ghosts of pride, where warriors refused to rest even in death. And the Valley of Defilement showed the corruption of society itself, where the weak were abandoned and left to rot. All of these places fell for different reasons, but they all ended up the same, consumed by fog, devoured by demons, and forgotten by history. And at the center of it all is the Old One. Not really evil in the way we usually think of it. It doesn't want power, it doesn't want revenge, it just exists. It's hunger without malice, it's despair without intent. In a way, it's like the natural end of all things. Given enough time, everything, kingdoms, faith, people, just fades away. And that's why Demon Souls still hits so hard. Even all these years later, it doesn't give you easy answers. It doesn't tell you if you're really a hero or just another piece of the cycle. It just asks, what would you do if the world was ending? Would you save it, or would you take its power for yourself? And maybe more importantly, does it even matter? Because in Boletaria, the fog always comes back. So whether you choose to let the maiden lull the old one back to sleep, or you took that power for yourself, the cycle continues. Another adventurer will come, another story will be told. That's the haunting beauty of Demon Souls. It's not about a happy ending, it's about the choices we make in the face of hopelessness and how those choices define who we are, even if the world completely forgets us. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the lore of Demon Souls. If you enjoyed the deep dive into the story and the themes behind it, make sure to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, especially which region or character resonated with you the most. And as always, if you want more Soulsborne lore breakdowns and in-depth game analysis, don't forget to subscribe. But until next time, may your soul remain whole.